of Islip Supervisor Angie Carpenter, welcoming you to Supervisor Spotlight. And I am so excited. We have a special guest with us today, and that is Monsignor Jim Floyn, who is the CEO of Catholic Faith Network, formerly Telecare, and formerly a million other things. Not quite a million, but a lot of other things, and a good friend. And I'm so delighted to have you here. And let's start by your history with the town, because when you walked into the town boardroom, it was like deja vu. You've been here before.
Yes, well, I've been blessed to be invited by you, and thank you for having me today too, Angie. It's good to have, be here with you.
Well, because of COVID, we've got a little different environment.
Sure.
We've been broadcasting from town boardroom to give us that opportunity for social distancing.
Sure.
Normally, in fact, the last time we did it, we were in the studio.
Yes.
So, and thank you to LI News Radio 103.9 for allowing us to do this, and they broadcast our shows on the radio, and we're on TV, so
yeah, what a
here
great
we are.
service. Great service.
Yeah.
Well, I started, in 1988 as a priest, and my first assignment was literally down the road here, just a little bit at St. Mary's in East Islip.
Yeah.
I grew up in West Babylon, just a little bit further down the other way, so St. Mary's was not completely alien to me, but I fell in love with this community so quickly. And I just loved it. And I was saying to you just before we started, I was invited to so many things as the young priest,
Yeah.
And it's fun to be a young priest. It's not bad being an older guy either, but the young priest thing, you get invited to so many things.
It's funny that you should say that, because a couple of weeks ago, my grandson, who's 7, made his first communion at St. Mary's.
Oh, wow.
And it was a young priest, and he was saying that it was the anniversary of when he had made his first communion 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So he was a young priest.
Father John Crozier is his name.
Yes,
yeah.
Really delightful. He was really very
man.
delightful, yeah.
Yeah, I had great times. I was invited all over. I mean, I would be down blessing boats, and they would have and also the Babylon Yacht Club.
I've seen you at a boat blessing.
Yes, and also the Fire Island ferries.
Exactly.
I'm blessing all of the ferries for the last, I don't know how many years. But then also in Islip High School, East Islip High School, I was invited from a number of years to go and do prayers at their commencement exercises and stuff. And it was really just a wonderful time for me. And oddly enough, Angie, in my years as a priest, which I'm just going into 33 years as a priest now,
Unbelievable.
that was the only parish I was ever assigned to. So I was in
Very
St. Mary's
interesting, right?
for 4 years.
You were and in the town of Islip at St. John the Baptist.
I went to St. John the Baptist,
Let's talk about that.
and I was part of the administrative team there. I was the chaplain and part of the administration. Boy, did I have a great time there. I loved it there.
Great facility.
So many kids, thousands
Yeah.
of kids. I got to know their families during the time they were there. And then, of course, later on in life, after I was transferred from there, after 13 years I left, marriages and baptisms, which I'm still doing to this very day.
Yep. And you've done that for our family.
Oh,
and
but I
we're
love it.
very grateful for that.
I love it. That's my
really
favorite
are.
thing. I always tell people, the reason I became a priest in the beginning, this is your dream, is to be with people in the best of times, help them through the worst of times, and to live life with them, I didn't know that the Lord would call me into the vineyard of communications and media, and yet, even in that world, I'm still able to do the work of a priest, It's different.
Well, it really is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to be working at something you love. And to be working with people on a regular basis, and to be able to help. And certainly in your role as a priest, you do that every single day of your life,
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
So it's got to be so terribly rewarding.
And now in a different way, because now I'm not looking at necessarily at a congregation. I live in Rockville Center now at St. Agnes Cathedral Parish, and I celebrate Mass there. But most of the time, this is how I see people, through a camera. So I really get to the point where I'm looking at my parishioners, if you will,
Right.
through a camera lens, But I'm very comfortable with that now.
Yeah.
I feel very at home with that.
Well, this last year, because of the pandemic, there's been a lot more of that talking to people through cameras.
Yeah.
Everyone, not everyone, but most everyone, I think, for the first time in their lives, have been exposed to Zoom, and Skype and FaceTime and other things to kind of keep connected. But you've been doing that prior to COVID with Telecare before, and now Catholic Faith Network, in communicating with your parishioners, so to speak.
Absolutely. And now it's really it's a global world. Like our network started in Nassau and Suffolk County. It's unbelievable, right? And when I first got there, that's what we were doing. We were ministering to the people there. And I just mentioned before we started, now we're in all 50 states. You know, and we're available on everybody's phones, and we're available online. We're available all these different ways now. You know, the online platforms like, and even the OTT like Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and people are watching us on that too. Millions of people. COVID, in a lot of ways, believe it or not, helped that tremendously for us, because people were looking for like faith. Where did they find faith in the midst of COVID? Because the churches were closed. You know, we couldn't be near one another. So they turned to our network, and that was an incredible thing for us.
And, you know, when you talk about the positives of COVID, there were some positives of it, you know, as there is with everything. You know, the glass is always half full.
Absolutely.
But people have embraced technology where they haven't before, and that certainly has to help you enormously.
Oh, absolutely. It's a funny thing you say that, because I often hear from other priests, and they'll say, sorry, we set up streaming in our parish, and I know we're cutting into your business. I said, are you kidding me? You're helping my business.
Yep.
As people feel more comfortable with this, that's only going to help us to grow, and it has helped us to grow. So, because we're watching the numbers very carefully, and we're really growing exponentially in people who are watching and getting strength from what we're doing, you know? And you know our network, it's kind of fun. It's not.
It is.
It's not like a wet blanket in any way.
And you know, it's not just someone saying the rosary, as I've seen, you know, you do.
Sure.
Or broadcasting a mass. But there are other fun things that you do.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not doing it any longer, but I do remember a show called Divine Intervention.
Yes, exactly. We had a game show for
A
a long
game
time.
show.
Monsignor Joe DeGracco hosted
Yes,
that.
yep.
And yeah, that was a really popular show for a long time. You know, the funny thing is, I mean, you all know that, anybody who's watching at home, you know, television shows sort of have a run.
Right.
And even the
right.
best shows on earth, like one of my favorites of all time was like the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yes.
And yet
Throw
when it
that hat in
ended,
the air.
Yeah, remember, and
Yeah.
I would be like crying at the end. When it finally, the series ended, I said, I can't believe they're ending this. I love it.
The one I liked that was prior to that, because I'm a little older than you, is I Love Lucy.
Sure.
And like I'll still watch those reruns.
Yeah, exactly,
Like, and I
right.
could have seen them 10 times, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they just have a long shelf life.
There
for
was
sure.
a moment, like again, where that game show was helpful because it was really kind of putting us on the map a little bit. At the same time we were developing that, we developed another program called Real Food.
Well,
And that was an interesting thing.
That has a very long life, I hope, because I don't want to see that one put on the shelf.
No, that's still going. Still going.
That's really a great show. Well, we are going to take a little break.
Okay.
And I'm here in our town board studio today with Monsignor Jim Floyn from Catholic Faith Network. Hi, this is Angie Carpenter, Town of Islip Supervisor, and we're here with Supervisor Spotlight. And our special guest today is Monsignor Jim Floyn of the Catholic Faith Network, a friend of the town and the supervisor. And I'm so excited that you're here today.
Good to be here.
And we were talking earlier about some of the shows on CFN. And one of my favorites is Real Food. I've had the opportunity to be on the show a couple of
Yes.
times. But I understand you're kind of changing it a little bit, so tell
Yeah.
us about it.
So we're in our 15th season.
Oh my gosh.
That's a long time, you know?
That is a long time.
And one of my dear friends, as you know, and you've met her yourself, is Lydia Bastianich.
Lovely.
Who's
A
just-
woman of faith,
Right?
and so
Great lady.
so delightful.
And what matters more than anything to her? Family, you know?
Yeah.
She has 3 F's she always talks about, and that's sort of mine too. It's faith, and it's family, and it's food.
Food, yep.
And she's just so connected in that way. So we were talking about it, and I said, listen, you know, I'm going into season 15 here. I said, like, how do you keep it fresh? She said, you know what we did? You should consider, why don't you take the show on the road and do a whole series someplace else?
Yeah, because
So-
she's got Lydia's Italy.
Exactly
is her
right.
show, right?
And she
Yep.
also does it, like she did one in like a barn in their house in Italy. And she
Okay.
did the whole series in her barn. So I had some friends who have a beautiful piece of property and house on the North Shore of Long Island. And what we're going to do is use the grounds there. It's called La Selva.
Oh,
and we're
wow.
going to use the grounds there. It looks like the Tuscan mountainside. And we're going to set up wooden tables, and I'm going to cook outside. It's going to be mostly simple, agricultural kind of cooking, and it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking
That
forward
sounds
to it.
exciting. And so, do you have any other venues in place?
This is going to be where we're going to host the series. So it's all going to live out of there. But then I always do some like visiting around. I'm going to do some work on Arthur Avenue.
Oh, please, I want to go. That's on my bucket list. I've never been.
You haven't been there?
Haven't been.
Let me be the guy who takes you the first time.
Okay, sounds like
because
a
I'm
plan.
telling you the truth, you can't eat the day before. But when we
I've
go,
heard this.
these guys come running out of the place. Oh, Monsignor, come in. You have to try this.
Cool.
Oh, come in. I made you some ravioli. I saw you coming.
Oh, that's great. That's
You'd
really
love it.
great. Well, I'm going to offer up a suggestion for
Sure.
a venue if you want to do one of your cooking shows. How about the kitchen of a senior center?
That would be wonderful, too.
That
sure.
would be kind of
I
different.
think that's a great story, too.
You know, and especially during this pandemic, and this is just happening, you know, you're seeing ideas being born live. But during the pandemic, it really drove home the message of how important those senior centers are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a number of them, you know, scattered around the town of Islip, in Brentwood, in West Islip, in Holbrook, in Ronkonkoma. But this is East Islip. This is a place for people to come together who otherwise would be home alone.
Yeah.
Needing that socialization, needing to be there for one another, whether they're playing cards or taking a painting class or just sitting there shooting the breeze over a cup of coffee, bingo, whatever it is, exercise classes. I mean, it's been a lifeline for them. And during the pandemic, it stopped. You know, we had to close over a year ago, and we're bringing it back slowly as people are getting vaccinated and everything. And we did open up about a week ago outside, and we're you know, broadening that as, you know, step by step. We want to do it carefully. We don't want to be a cause of anyone developing COVID.
Of course.
But it really hammered home the message of how important. And I think if you could do something like that, and meals, now many of them are getting their only hot meal of the day at a senior center.
Right, I know that.
And when the centers close, like, what do you do? So we kicked it into gear. We had a Meals on Wheels program, but kicked it into high gear where we were doing over 700 meals a day.
My Lord.
You know,
Wow.
going to their homes, and that was an opportunity for them to, you know, see the driver, you know, take the meal and have a little bit of a conversation. Yeah, this would be cool.
I love the
would
idea.
Love to do that.
I know my mom and dad participated for a long time out in the town of Brookhaven in a senior center, you know. And I'll tell you the truth, they're always bragging about the food. Always bragging about it.
Well, the price is always right, too.
Exactly right.
It's quite nominal. And then you'll love when you go and you see them with their little plastic containers. You know, they'll eat half a sandwich and take half of
Take
it
some home, sure.
But, you know, that's all good. That's
I love
all
that.
good.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's such an important thing. I'll tell you the truth, food is a tremendous common denominator, right?
Everybody's got to eat.
It's an interesting thing how food links us. And you think about, like, even worship. I mean, no matter what religion you are when you're watching. I mean, food is part of it. We gather around a table in like a giant dining room. What is a church? But really,
Right,
I mean, a
right.
Christian church is basically a giant dining room, and we have a meal. We have a sacred meal. So, like, it connects us to God, to one another. That's when we started doing the Real Food Show 15 years ago, you know. I said to myself, this might be a good thing to try and see if people would connect with it, you know.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that about food, because regardless of the denomination, I've gone, you know, in my role as a supervisor, I've been invited to many, you know, occasions, celebrations, and I remember going to the mosque, and after the service, you know, it's come into the dining hall and everybody gathers and is eating all of this great, you know, food.
Sure.
And likewise going to menorah lighting for Hanukkah. And then afterwards, breaking out the hot chocolate and the donuts and the jelly donuts and everything else
Yeah.
that was traditionally a part of the celebration of Hanukkah.
Yeah.
So, and at churches, you know, Christian churches with communion at every mass or service.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and again, like that. The other thing that happens too is we sort of change through a meal. Like, you know, in your work, in my work, we're at lunch a lot of times with people, and sometimes I am sort of reluctant to have lunch. Because once we have lunch, I can't really hit you up in the same way I would hit you up if we didn't have lunch. Because we have a bond through a meal. I mean, you and I have many, many meals together. I mean, you kind of get a bond that way, and there's something beautiful about that, you know?
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, that's why I think food is so fundamental, and I'm glad it's on our network. You know, and I have to say, it's one of the most popular programs we produce, the Real Food Show, because of that. We have a new cookbook out this year, with all
I
of that,
got
too.
it.
You
I
got it, right?
When you had your telethon,
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that,
Yeah.
too. It's a good book, too. I'm glad. I'm so happy with how it turned out. It was really good. I had a lot of my friends contribute to it, too, which was
Well,
good.
it just was an eye-opener as to the kinds of famous chefs and everything that you've been involved with, that you've had on the show.
Yeah, a lot of
I mean, you
fun stuff.
mentioned Lydia, but there have been others, guys from Patsy's. And
Yeah, Pat, Bobby Flay. We've had on, I even had Dom DeLuise on. I had the guy, Frank Pellegrino, who owns Rayo's, who's passed away since, but he was on. And yeah, we've had lots and lots of different people. George Hirsch, who has a PBS show, is on all the time with me. Yeah, lots and lots of folks. And they're very willing, which is so beautiful, to come on and do their thing. And then the other thing is a lot of chefs from the restaurants you know and love.
Well, that's what I
Executive
like
chef from
to-
Tellers.
Yep.
He's been on.
they've
And
been on.
we can go up and down Montauk Highway here.
Francesco's, I know he's been on.
Yep, Il Villaggio
Yep,
in
yep.
Babylon. Lots and lots of people who have restaurants here, because and that was another couple of seasons where, I wanted to highlight the talent of the people who own and cook at restaurants on Long Island. And it's amazing.
And now more than ever, the opportunity for a restaurant to have that kind of exposure, to let people see what they do and get a little glimpse behind the scenes of
Yeah.
what their restaurant is like, encouraging them hopefully to go. And certainly with what we've been through this last year, what the restaurant industry has been
Oh,
through,
Lord, right?
it is absolutely heartbreaking
Yeah.
when you see. But they're very resilient, small business owners are very resilient, and they kind of turn themselves around. You mentioned Tellers. I know that they, never did takeout,
Right.
but wound up doing takeout and
Yeah.
almost, as a quasi-butcher, selling steaks for people to
Yeah.
fix at home. But even, driving every day, leaving Town Hall, going down Montauk Highway through Bayshore, so many restaurants there. But during the pandemic, it was hopping.
Yeah.
It was hopping because of the takeout, because of the outside dining.
And that's a wonderful thing, right? That we need that. I'll tell you the truth, what it reminded me of, because we also do shows in Rome every year, though we couldn't go last year, of course. But that's kind of that spirit in Rome, where people are eating outside, they're having conversation with one another. There's a certain, kind of fraternity that's present out there, community that forms. It's beautiful. I started to kind of observe that just in Babylon. I was in Babylon not long ago, and it was like a Saturday night, and I was walking, and people were saying hi as I was walking down the street, and it was like sort of this big community with people eating outside. Really beautiful.
The outdoor eating, I think, is going to continue. I know that from a town's perspective, it was a little bit of a challenge, but our planning department rose to the challenge immediately, kicked it into gear, and issued outdoor dining permits in areas that normally would not have been permissible.
Of course, yeah.
But always making sure that the safety of the public was not being compromised, and gave them those permits almost instantly,
Ah,
same
that's
day, if
wonderful.
not the next day. And the fire marshal would go and check, because you certainly don't want to block any fire exits, et cetera. But it kept people going, and just like you say, driving by and noticing, the outdoor dining tents, even at over at the mall.
Yeah.
I just noticed that the other day. Fridays has tents out there, the diners.
Yeah.
And they've gotten very, very creative. Some of them, it's very, very attractive, and they put the potted plants out, and
Of
they have
course,
nice
yeah.
lawn furniture, and it's quite comfortable.
I just was at the Peter Pan Diner not long ago. I went with Sister Nancy and Sister Diane from Our Lady
from
of
Our
Lourdes.
Lady of Lourdes, yep.
And funny thing, it was an inside experience. It was my first time eating inside, actually, in a very long time. They had a band in there. It was like
At
a
the
wedding.
Peter Pan Diner?
Yes, they have music
oh my
there.
goodness
That's very
gracious.
nice.
That's
It was
so
very
funny.
enjoyable.
We're going to pick up on that in a moment. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back with Supervisor Spotlight with Monsignor Jim Floyn. Hi, welcome back to Supervisor Spotlight. This is Angie Carpenter from the town of Islip with our guest today, Monsignor Jim Floyn of the Catholic Faith Network. And we were talking a little bit before about, not a little bit, a lot about restaurants and food, but that's not surprising for either of us. But that the Peter Pan Diner had live entertainment. My gosh, that is really interesting.
Yeah, I was happy for them. It really was nice,
Yeah.
and it was a nice crowd there, and people were enjoying themselves. It wasn't overly loud, like you couldn't talk, you could speak, and it was really very nice. So
Well,
nice to see.
a lot of the local restaurants have gotten into live music. now that it's permitted again. I know they started with single or duo acoustic.
Yeah, this was duo,
permitted.
yeah.
But I know in Bayshore, in the hamlet of Bayshore, the downtown has a tremendous, number of restaurants, very, very successful. And they normally have the Arts Festival by the Bay, which they did not plan for this year because of COVID. But what they are going to be doing going forward, Thursdays through the summer, is Nashville Thursdays in Bayshore.
Wow.
And the
Wow.
restaurants are doing Nashville-themed menus and are going to have entertainment, kind of
Great
Nashville
idea.
music.
Yeah.
And so I told him about the fact that Southwest Airlines is commencing nonstop service from Islip Airport to Nashville, Tennessee.
That's wonderful.
June
Congratulations
6th.
on that, too.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So we're going to have a big hoopla kind of for the first flight, but they're partnering with the restaurants there and having some giveaways, and I think they're raffling off some free tickets.
Ah, that's wonderful.
So
Great
it'll
idea.
be kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier. Some good things have come out of COVID when you think
Yeah.
about it. There is a resurgence, I think, in community, which is nice to see. I think there's a resurgence in faith, which is a nice thing to see. I mean, we're finding, like, even as we speak around, to different priests and stuff in our diocese, we're finding like that the churches are doing very well. People are supporting their churches, but also people are going, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it is true.
Yeah.
It is true, and a renewed sense of appreciation for what it meant to them.
Yeah. I mean, there was an Easter, Angie, like I was saying Easter Mass at my desk in my room at St. Agnes Cathedral.
That's
like,
it.
that's not what I got involved for,
But even Easter this year, things had started loosening up.
Just beginning,
But, seeing people so spread apart, the rows so spread apart, it was taped off pews.
Yeah.
It was different. But hopefully next year.
I think it's all changing, yeah. Thanks be to God,
You said you were rattling off a list of things that some of the positives out of COVID. And for me, I took away and am taking away from that not to procrastinate. How many times have we said to someone, oh, we've got to get together for lunch, or we've got to get together, after dinner, we've got to get together, whatever. And the days come and go, and the weeks and the months, and you realize you never did that. And during this past year, there were people in our lives that will never have that opportunity again, because
sadly.
we procrastinated.
Yeah, it's true.
So I'm really making an effort not to do that, to kind of follow through.
That's a good idea.
You
I mean,
know?
and I also find like a certain sensitivity to everyone who's lost somebody.
Yep.
I was like, I'm very close with the Chappie family, and Doug Chappie, and everybody at the Chappie Funeral Home, actually down in West Islip. But interesting, like I was doing some services for people I knew who had passed away, and there were times that it was just a camera and the person's body and nobody, because nobody was allowed to go.
Yep.
And I would think to myself, like, how could these people possibly mourn the loss with just a camera? It's just so unfair. And I think there's a lot of people who've gone through that. I mean, if I think just me, I'm just one priest,
Yeah.
and I'm not a priest in a parish. I'm one priest, and I probably did between 65 and 75
Oh
funerals.
my gosh.
Just from COVID.
And so many of those that you've heard about that have passed, have said there'll be memorials in the future, and hopefully they will, because
Yeah.
I think you need that sense of people coming together to have that closure, if you will.
Yeah, of understanding, like, gee, this is terrible what we've all gone through, And it really is terrible what we've all gone through. I mean, there's
Well, we
hope.
went through it. I mean,
Right.
there really hope.
That's
hope,
my
hope
thing.
is the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a part, I'm not a big Bible quoter, but I'm going to give you one little quote. Hope remains, and hope will always remain. St. Paul said that. I'm a big fan of that. That the fact that there's always going to be hope, no matter what happens. And I think, we've come through a lot together. But there's a sense of hope that first of all, we got to the other side somehow. And what are we going to do with that experience now to make this community a better community, our world a better world? That's all about hope.
And really, there really is a sense, there should be a sense of accomplishment, if nothing else, for having come through it.
Yeah.
Because when this all started, and it was March, right, of 2020, and I remember the first decision was, do we have the St. Patty's Day Parade? Do we let them have the Bayshore St. Patty's Day Parade? And it was Thursday when the decision was made, and there still was a lot of, well, should we? We could probably have it, and maybe not. And obviously it was the right decision, because I think it was the 12th of March when they made the decision to pull the plug on the parade. But it was tough. It was tough not knowing. But at that point, if someone had said, you're going to be dealing with that for over a year, you know, people are going to be wearing masks.
I wouldn't believe them, yeah.
Exactly, you would not believe them.
I would have said you're fooling.
Exactly, there's no way.
I mean, we had to do that with our golf outing.
Right.
I said, like, well, we're going to cancel it. And people were saying, why are you canceling it? It's in May. This will long be over by May.
Right.
I said, I don't think it is going to be long over by May. I think we better cancel it. And thank God we did.
It's true.
And by the way, I have to say that much too. Like, because you're at a zillion events. I'm at not a zillion, I'm at a million events. And, I think everybody was very cooperative in helping us to cancel events too.
Yes.
Which is helpful. Like, all of the owners of the restaurants and the catering halls and the hotels and all these things that had to get everybody understood. Even the golf courses, like nobody was saying, oh yeah, you're going to be penalized for this. No, not at all.
No, everybody understood.
Yeah, which is good.
It was so totally out of our control.
Yeah, exactly.
That they really, I don't want to say they had no choice. They certainly legally could have had a choice, but they made the right decision.
And listen, hats off to another thing to our hospitals, huh? In all of this. Because, where would we be without our hospitals? Now, I'm a little biased to a good Sam, right? Of course, for obvious reasons, But, I was on the board.
And we are blessed, I have to say this, in the town of Islip, that we have two incredible, and I've seen you at Southside.
Yes, of course.
Which is now South Shore University Hospital. But, we have them in Bayshore and certainly Good Samaritan Hospital in West Islip. But for a township to have two incredibly credentialed
premier places.
We're very, very blessed.
And those frontliners, and it sort of becomes cliche, but it's really not. Like we know these people. We bump into them all the time, and every day they were doing the hard work of what it is.
And it's not just the doctors and the nurses, but the person pushing them up.
Yeah.
We got to appreciate how important hygiene and cleanliness and all of that, keeping a place sanitized. I know even in the town, my hat goes off to our custodial crew. They were here if a case, was developed in an office. They would be there overnight to sanitize and make sure everything. And they're cleaning knobs, doorknobs and handrails, and just wiping everything down all the time. And it's continued. And again, a positive out of it. We had decreased, if any, cases of the flu.
That's the truth.
Because people are wearing masks, people are sanitizing. My hands are raw from
no, me too.
Sanitizing
there goes my hand modeling
and washing.
career.
Yeah, my hand modeling career went out the window. But it's so true. It really, really is.
Yeah, it's incredible. And again, I think, there's always going to be a sense of gratitude in my heart for those people.
Absolutely.
For what they've given us. Because
the community, too.
Yeah, it's true.
In West Islip, we'll talk about Good Sam, and they did it also at Southside. But from the community, organized this caravan of caring, hundreds of cars with handmade, posters. Thank you, healthcare workers, and you're our heroes, driving around the perimeter of the hospital and seeing the staff come out, some with tears in their eyes because they were being appreciated.
Yeah, exactly right.
They were being cherished, and they are. They are. Anyone who helped get us through that should be cherished and
again, all of our other service people, right? The firemen and the police and the EMTs. We're so blessed. And my hope is that sense of gratitude glows for a long time. I don't want to forget that. I hope people don't forget that because we're so lucky that we have all that.
Well, it's up to people like you to make sure we perpetuate that.
Yeah.
We can't let it go. We really can't let it go.
We keep highlighting it on our network, on CFN, letting people know that there's such good and holy people out there who just gave, and didn't ask for anything in return, just gave.
It reminds me of Pope Francis had said something in a letter or something that I've, mentioned many times, and that's the saints among us, the neighbors, the guy next door that lives next door to you that comes out, and I have one, God bless George and Eileen, that, when it snows, I can hear the snowblowers out there going.
Yeah.
I don't ask, they're out there helping. My husband can't get out there and do that any longer. And, there are people that just really care and care for one another that are truly everyday saints.
And the truth of the matter, even with us, in our world, Angie, like you watch TV, my guys were working through the whole pandemic.
Yep.
You know, the cameras had to be manned or femaled. The shows had to be produced. You know, we do St. Patrick's Cathedral, so if somebody had to be in Manhattan doing
Yep.
this all their
Yep.
and
And that's not the place people wanted to go during
No.
the pandemic. So
and
yeah.
yet they just did it. You know, nobody squawked, nobody said anything. They knew the work that needed to be done.
And here too, you know, government had to go on. You
Right,
know,
yeah.
a little bit different, but it did go on. So I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Thank you
This
so much
has
for
been
having me. I love to
delightful.
talk to you. I love spending time with you. You know I love you.
Same
so
here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to all of us, to all of you out there watching and listening, we thank you so much. And a special thank you to Monsignor Jim Floyn of Catholic Faith Network. And do tune in to Channel 29 on Cablevision.
That's right, 137 or cfntv.org.
Okay, there you
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you so much.